Hello, and welcome to this, the 35th day of our program, 50 Days with God.
The Bible is full of laws and commands, but up to which point do we have to keep them? Are there some laws that are no longer valid or we don't have to keep anymore?
Follow along to discover a law of no value.
My dear friends, today we are going to talk about a very important subject, and I trust that you all are enjoying different topics and different subjects discussed by many pastors and many ministers, Bible workers. So today the subject is about the two sets of laws and the ceremonial feasts of the Bible, and why today's Christians do not observe them. So this is a kind of a question, and to our surprise, there are so many people asking this question, and there are misconceptions as well as theories developed by some other people that they believe that this is important, and some say no, it is not important. So today we are going to evaluate and see how important it is for us to follow these ceremonial feasts, and should we follow or it is not important. So this is what we are going to evaluate today. Now, before going into examining that, we need to understand something as Christians. Why we are Christians? Why we are following Christ? And this is a big question all of us need to answer, because if there's no purpose for us to be a Christian, why should we follow this? Why should we follow the Bible and observe everything and worship God? Why? It is very simple for us to understand, is that we want to go to heaven. So in order to go to heaven, we are following the Christianity. And how can we go to heaven? That we have to find a solution for all our sins we have done against God, and by that we can go to heaven. So this is a kind of a very simplified answer for that question. But of course there are some deeper lessons we need to study and things, but we can do that later. But now, God has a purpose for all those who are living today on this earth, so-called Christians. And He wanted everyone to follow the correct way according to the Bible, without following something here and something there and little here, little there. No, He wants us to have a clear understanding about this subject. Now, the source of the law, we know it is from God. Now, there are two kinds of laws we find in the Bible. What is this law we are talking about? The moral law and the ritual or the ceremonial laws we find in the Bible. So, the ceremonial laws are in relation with all the festivals mentioned in the Bible. Then the ceremonies, that is why the ceremonial laws come in here. And most important aspect of the following Christianity that today is about salvation. So today, if the Christianity is talking about salvation, so did Judaism speak about salvation or not, is another question we need to examine. Yes, of course, they also spoke about salvation. But how did they do that? So Judaism was talking about salvation same as Christians, and they also had Messiah as the mediator, and person who is going to make that link between the fallen humanity with God or with heaven. Now, ceremonial laws were there in order for the Jews to understand this plan of salvation in a simplified form or in a symbolic way. in a symbolic way. So, in order to understand this perfectly, we need to answer some of the questions. Okay, first question, if we think of this, if we say that which law reveals sin? Which law reveals sin? We find in the book of Romans, chapter 7, verse 7, we find that what shall we say then? Is a law sin? God forbid. Nay, I had not known sin, but by the law. For I had not known lust, except the law had said, Thou shalt not covet. Now, in this verse, Apostle Paul is mentioning to the Romans about the importance of the law. And without that example and without that explanation by Apostle Paul, people don't understand exactly what he is referring to, because they were already having laws, not one law, laws. But out of the laws, we have two sets of laws, as we see, like the ceremonial part of it as well as the moral. Now, he's talking about thou shalt not covet. Where are we finding this law? We are finding that in the moral law or the 10 Commandments, and which is a number 10. Number 10 of the 10 Commandments, we find that law like thou shalt not covet. So this example shows us that the New Testament is dealing, or the Christianity is dealing with the 10 Commandments, and Judaism was dealing with the 10 Commandments plus the ceremonial laws. And why the New Testament is not dealing with the ceremonial laws? Because the ceremonial laws were important, or it was targeting towards Christ. And Christ came in, and that symbolically expressed ceremonies were fulfilled on the sacrifice of Christ, because he was the best sacrifice. We will see that later in the book of Hebrews, how once again the author of Hebrews explaining this subject. In the book of James, chapter 2, verses 8 through 12, James is explaining something about that. We understand very clearly. And it says, if ye fulfill the royal law according to the scripture, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, ye do well. Now, he's talking about the law that Jesus also was trying to explain. The two laws, the 10 Commandments, were already compressed into these two. That is, to love God and love thy neighbor. So James is talking here about neighbor. And verse 9, we read, but if ye have respect to persons, ye commit sin, and are convinced of the law as transgressors. Of course. For whosoever shall keep the whole law and yet offend in one point, he is guilty of all. For he that said, do not commit adultery, said also, do not kill. Now, if thou commit no adultery, yet if thou kill, thou art become a transgressor of the law. So speak ye, and so do, as they that shall be judged by the law of liberty. So this is what James is trying to explain to us, and he says that we will be judged according to the law. That is why he is calling this law the law which contains about adultery, which contains about killing, and also earlier we found that the covetousness. Now all these things are dealing with the moral law, and James is calling it the royal law. Why royal law? Because it is going to be discussed, or it is going to be the basis of the royal high court in front of the high priest and the judges. They are going to examine each and every character according to this law. So that is the reason that he is calling this the royal law. And he says about not only, he's talking about committing adultery and not to kill, etc., which we find in the moral law, not in the ceremonial laws. Not in the ceremonial laws. Of course, ceremonial laws are directing everything towards the sanctuary. The ceremonial laws are surrounded with the sanctuary worship and the day-to-day or annual festivals and all these ceremonies or rituals mainly, which are very, very much important towards the sacrifice of Jesus or the Messiah to come. But of course we know Messiah came already and he fulfilled everything. So because of that, we understand that these ceremonial laws are of not important today because it is all fulfilled with Christ and his sacrifice. Now, we all know the Ten Commandments are being written by God himself on the 2 tables of stones. We know that story very well, and we know further that it was written with his hand or with his finger. So that is also shows very well that in Deuteronomy we read, Deuteronomy chapter 4 verse 13, we read that about this and how God gave these 2 tablets of tables of commandments to Moses, and Moses was carrying with him. And when we consider that, in the New Testament, John chapter 15 verse 10 we read, "If ye keep my commandments, ye shall abide in my love, even as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love." So this is Jesus' statement. And here we find that Jesus also regarded the 10 commandments and he kept the 10 commandments. But of course you need to understand, Jesus was born as a Jew and he remained in Israel, among the Israelites, and he followed exact ceremonies and he followed everything according to Moses' the ceremonial laws, because even at that time when Jesus was living, the sacrifice was not yet done or fulfilled. So after the fulfillment, there was no need for these ceremonies. This is the understanding we have. So again, we find that in Deuteronomy chapter 31 verse 24 we read that, "And it came to pass when Moses had made an end of writing the words of this law in a book until they were finished." Here it is very evident that Moses himself wrote according to the instructions given to him by God. So, of course, we have no doubt that both the laws having one source, that is God himself gave both the laws, but one is for eternity, the other one was pointing out the sacrifice of Christ or the plan of salvation. And plan of salvation is not yet completed until the redeemed being taken away from this sinful world. But of course, the major part of the sacrifice and Jesus's atonement is still going on, but Jesus' sacrifice was fulfilled. So this we need to keep in mind. Deuteronomy chapter 40 verse 20 we read in the book of Deuteronomy, and it says, "And he took and put the testimony into the ark and set the staves on the ark and put the mercy seat above upon the ark." Now, this is dealing with the 10 commandments. When they were building the sanctuary and they had the Ark of the Covenant and they placed these 10 commandments, the tablets, inside the Ark of the Covenant, and they had the mercy seat upon it. So this is what we understand. And in the same Deuteronomy chapter 31 verse 26 we read that take this book of the law and put it in the side of the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God, that it may be there for a witness against thee. Now, why this is placed on a side of the Ark of the Covenant, the other one inside the Ark of the Covenant under the mercy seat? Because the Ten Commandments were so important, because it depicts it indicates the character of God, whereas the other ceremonial laws which were placed on the side of the ark were pointing to the sacrifice yet to be done at that time by Messiah, or about Messiah's coming. Now, a very good explanation we find in the book of Hebrews, chapter 9, verses 9 through 10, and I like to read until 12. Actually, Hebrews 9 through 12, we read, which was a figure for a time then present, in which were offered both gifts and sacrifices that could not make him that did the service perfect, as pertaining to the conscience, which stood only in meats and drinks, and divers washings and carnal ordinances imposed on them until the time of Reformation. But Christ being come an high priest of good tidings, to come by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, that is to say, not of this building, neither by the blood of goats and calves, but by his own blood he entered in once into the holy place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. In this we find very, very good explanation by the author of Hebrews chapter 9, that he says very clearly that these ordinances are there for as ceremonies, and this is imposed on them until the time of Reformation. Until that time, until such time only it was there. And we find it very clearly here about that. And it is going on until the Christ sacrifice was made. So here we find that it's very clear that the ceremonies were continued until such time. So this is another example for us to have very clear understanding that ceremonial laws are not existing in the Christian community today, because they were fulfilled. And there are some churches, there are some groups, they are still talking about explaining that ceremonies are still there and we should be following. And sometimes they say, on the contrary, they say that, even everything was demolished, including the Ten Commandments. No, brother, no, it is not there. Friends, please understand that. No such thing that, the Ten Commandments and the ceremonial laws go together in terms of the time, because it is not for time and eternity. The Ten Commandments remain from the beginning to the end, whereas the ceremonial laws are always, it's dealing only towards Messiah and his sacrifice. Now, these are some of the things that we were looking at. On the other hand, you might wonder what are the feasts these people were observing, or these Jews were following. And for your understanding, you can study these things in the book of Exodus as well as in the book of Deuteronomy. And the Moses' books, you find that very clearly he mentions about all the feasts and festivals. Basically, they had 7 feasts. 7 feasts. The first part of the year, first half of the year, they had 3. And the second half of the year, they had another 3. In between these two connection, they had the Pentecost. So that completes the 7. This is how they had 7 feasts. Now, I would like to just mention, for example, for our understanding, I would like to mention, like, the Passover was a prophecy of the Messiah. Passover shows Messiah. What is Passover? Passover was initiated or created at the time when they were to leave Egypt on the last plague, that the firstborn, all the firstborns were there in Egypt were to be struck by the angel and they were to be killed, and that was the test. And they said, in order to save your firstborn, you need to have the blood on the doorpost. And then the angel of death passing by, and when he see the blood, that house was spared and the firstborn was left. And all the Jews followed this ritual, and in order to commemorate, or in remembrance of this, they continued this Passover. And this is a symbol of Messiah. With his blood, with the blood of Christ, we have redemption. With the blood of Christ, we have life. With the blood of Christ, we have salvation. So this is another symbol we find here. And the Feast of Pentecost was a symbol of outpouring of the Holy Ghost. That is the symbol, the day of Pentecost. And that was fulfilled with the early rain. We find that very clearly. So this is yet another one. And the Day of Atonement was a reminder of Christ's atonement. Christ's atonement. And it is very clear. And we believe that the Day of Atonement is yet going on now, at this time, because we are being scrutinized. Actually, now they are having the investigative judgment going on in heaven, and Jesus is a mediator. We all know that Jesus is a mediator. There is no reason for him to be a mediator. There is no judgment process going on. So these are the things we find that. And another ritual the Jews followed was circumcision. Circumcision also was one of the rituals was given to the Jews to be a peculiar people on earth. Only Jews were circumcised. And then why? Because, and in the New Testament we find that Apostle Paul, once again, he is explaining there is no need for the circumcision or circumcision. That is the flesh, that the flesh of the sin, and it has been taken out, and it was a symbol. And today, with the baptism and with the conversion of heart and with our commitments, we are performing that spiritual circumcision. And here we find that Apostle Paul explaining these things in spiritually in the New Testament. So all these ceremonials and all these rituals were symbolic, and they were all fulfilled. Because of that, we don't need to follow them. But on the other hand, the very unfortunate thing is that Satan was disappointed that people are not following these things, because then if they are following without understanding the spiritual part of these ceremonies, it is easy for him to mislead. But now he failed in that, because the Christian understanding, people don't follow this and they understand more spiritually about what happened and what is happening. So because of that, he introduced many other festivities among the Christians to mislead them. One is the Christmas. He introduced Christmas instead of that. It was a pagan festival. We don't have time to explain, or we need to study about this subject, because it is a very vast area. But for our understanding, we can always think, and for our understanding that these Christians today, they are celebrating Christmas on December 25th. There is no such evidence in the Bible, whichever is mentioned. There is no date given, in the Bible about Jesus was born on the December 25th. So it is a pagan festival adopted by the Christian Church. I think it is everything comes with in the Council of Nicaea, which AD 325, and lot of things they changed, and lot of things were adopted after Christ and after establishing the church. And the apostolic church never followed these kind of things, but this is Roman Catholic origin, has this kind of introduction to the Christianity. And another ceremony today everyone else was celebrating or following is Easter. Even Easter has its pagan origin. Easter also has its pagan origin. In America, 1870, they introduced Easter. Until such time, nobody was celebrating or following Easter until 1870. And at that time, they introduced it. It also has a pagan origin. My dear friends, please keep in mind that we need to follow Jesus. We need to always follow His commandments and the 10 commandments. And also, all these 10 commandments were I could say, all were put together in the concept of love. We need to love God and we need to love our neighbors. And this is what Christ introduced. And following these pagan festivals, following these pagan practices, and also the Jewish unwanted, redundant, obsolete ceremonies are not going to help us, because we need to understand the reality. The reality is Christ came and He fulfilled all these things and all these actual ceremonies, and as a living sacrifice He gave Himself for us, and He sacrificed Himself in order to redeem us, and He became the lamb, and He became the sacrifice. So we need to keep that in mind, and we need to submit ourselves, and we need to come closer to each other as well as closer to God. By that we can fulfill the law. This is my wish and prayer. Amen.
That was very important and interesting topic. As we learned, the Bible contains 2 sets of laws. One that we have to keep in order to go to heaven, and one that was abolished at the cross.
Let us not be confused, but research and keep the right laws so that we can go to heaven when Jesus returns in glory. Just like today, in the next video, we have another fascinating topic on an oasis in the desert of life.
Continue joining us throughout these 50 days with God.
Greetings to everyone. My name is Vilma Alejos. I'm doctor in natural medicine. Also, I'm a counselor in drug addiction and compulsive disorders. In this opportunity, I'm going to present a topic with the title, How to Deal with Insomnia and Sleep Well. We as humans, we have a precious time of 24 hours. These 24 hours we divide in 16 hours for working, sleeping, eating, and dedicating time to our family, and 8 hours we have for resting. Our body goes to sleep. Since it's getting darker, we feel like we have to sleep. And many times maybe we ask by ourselves, what is bringing us to the pattern of feeling sleepy and to go to sleep? Happens that we have in our body, in our brain, we have a gland called the pineal gland. The pineal gland is located by the middle of our brain. The pineal gland's special function is to control our circadian cycle. The pineal gland is made up primarily of secretory cells called pinealocytes, which secretes melatonin at varying rates throughout our 24-hour cycle. The highest rate of melatonin secretion occurs in the middle of the night. They begin to decrease as it gets closer to dawn. This schedule of melatonin release is maintained by the based on the amount of light in the environment that the pineal gland receives from the retina. The retina sends this information to a nucleus in the hypothalamus called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. And from there, it takes a path to the pineal gland. The suprachiasmatic nucleus also controls circadian rhythm. The SCN has a receptors for melatonin, and it uses the melatonin signal to attain information about the time of the day. Since melatonin levels are highest during the hours of darkness, the SCN can use melatonin activity as a sign that our circadian rhythm should be in its nocturnal stage. So we have the melatonin hormone that is the main communication from the pineal gland with the rest of our nervous system, especially our neuroendocrine system. By disturbing our time of sleeping, as we said before, we need to sleep at least 8 hours. Many times we don't sleep the hours we have been indicated. This disturbing time in our time of sleeping can cause different degenerative diseases in our body. Like it's been studied that the Alzheimer's disease can be caused by the accumulation of calcium and other toxins like protein toxins that is not being digested in our body can be storage in our brain. And this calcium will make that the pineal gland to reduce the melatonin production. And this calcification is going to bring to a person to these degenerative diseases like the Alzheimer's and dementia. And so the sleeping well, the sleeping quality is going to help us. In 2015, a study showed how adults enjoy healthy sleep had significantly fewer signs of visible protein debris on their brain scan, and adults who sleep poorly. Research indicates that while you sleep, it is as if your brain runs its own self-cleaning cycle, sweeping away these dangerous debris. Sleep removes the day's metabolic waste before any of these harmful proteins fragments can accumulate and affect our cognitive health. So this is showing us scientifically that because we are not sleeping enough time, our body has not time to take away, to clean out, to sweep away the calcium or the protein. And so during our sleeping time, our body cleans itself, rejuvenates during the resting time. Our age-related melatonin. The melatonin produced normally in quantities, large quantities, when a person is a child. And the child, for the time, the child can sleep at any time during the day and the whole night. The melatonin production is high, but since you got to the puberty, like to 11, 12 years, the melatonin start reducing the amount. And when you got to 60 years, maybe you will have a 20% production of melatonin. And we see many elder people that are sleeping later in few hours. So it's good to think how to maintain our melatonin level in good production in our body. And here I'm going to recommend how to control our melatonin production in a nice way. An easy way to help ourselves is by changing our lifestyle, following a plant-based diet. A plant-based diet has high protein, good protein, also has a high amount of vitamins and good quality. So we can have the vitamins, natural vitamins in whole fruits, organic whole fruits. For example, by doing our own juice of oranges, of grapefruits, of carrots, vegetables, mixing different green vegetables and blending together and drinking the juice of those vegetables. Also eating fruits, but the real organic fruits, like a watermelon that has good flavor, good taste, and has the seeds. Also, we mentioned the legumes. The legumes are the beans, especially the chickpea. The chickpea is very highly nutritional and helps controlling your cholesterol, and also has all the nutrients you need and vitamins. We have the black beans. The black beans high in iron and other minerals. So we can cook our legumes and eat them as whole grains, natural and organic. Also, we can prepare sprouts of any kind of seeds. Sprouts of beans, any kind of beans. We can do sprouts of lentils. We can do from black beans, pinto beans, chickpeas, any kind of seeds, including the cereals. The cereals are seeds, and we are talking about whole grain cereals. We have the favorite one, the most nutritional seed in our environment is the quinoa. The quinoa is being studied with different researchers, and is one that has digestive enzymes and many nutrients, and is recommended to any person who is being sick. Also, we have the rice. The rice, we have different kinds. We have white rice or brown rice. Is the organic good one that I recommend. Is the brown rice. Is also black rice and red rice. On the quinoa, we have the white quinoa, red quinoa, and black quinoa. All of them are very nutritional. Also, we have the barley, we have the wheat, we have the other cereal, many other cereals that we have, and we have the oatmeal. If we can use as whole, would be nice. All of those organic seeds are good to prepare our daily food. So they are very nutritional, very tasty, and highly nutritional. Much better than any other group of foods that we can find. So also I would like to recommend other activities to do to help our sleeping pattern. The first one I want to mention is exercising in open air and sunlight. So walking outside. Walking outside is being studied that helps on weight loss and also help on better sleep. So the best way to exercise is not going to a big room where you have different machines. The better way to exercise is walking outside where the sunlight is open and the air is for you to breathe deep, and that is going to help you energizing and helping you to sleep. Also is going to help with the vitamin D that we know a lot. The other one I want to recommend is the therapeutic massage. The therapeutic massage is being proved that to help with releasing pain, releasing anxiety, and releasing depression, and especially helping on the sleep pattern. The other therapy I want to mention is reflexology. The reflexology can be done on our fingers and our hands, massaging our palms, our fingers one by one, and also can be done on our feet. 1 hour reflexology in our feet will help releasing from stress, anxiety, and help you sleeping very good. The other I want to recommend now are some kind of herbs. But before the herbs, I want to mention 2 minerals that help sleeping. One is the magnesium that help relaxing and give you a healthy sleep, and help with your muscles and help with your bones, especially the calcium is going to help with your bones and help you with your stress and also with the sleep pattern. And talking about herbs, we have the lavender. The lavender is one herb has been studied in different researchers that this herb is good to take as a tea or as a oil. As a tea, you can drink warm, good tea before you go to sleep. If you want, you can mix with this other herb called chamomile. Chamomile and lavender are very good to help you sleeping and taking away some stomach disorders, and also help you to relax, and it is recommended for people who suffer from depression. The other plant or herb we have is being called passion flower. The passion flower is a very good recognized in different countries in this earth that can be used to help with insomnia, to help with seizures and hysteria. So the passion flower is going to help you very much on the nervous system. The other herb is called linden flower. Linden flower is being known as one of the best to support your nervous system. You can take as a tea and you can take as oil. We need to be careful with oils. Some essential oils, almost the majority of essential oils, are being recommended to use externally on massaging or on skin therapy. But to take internally, you need to be very sure that the oil is being extracted from organic plants, and is the indication said to use internally. So many of the oils that are being to use externally, taking internally can be dangerous, can be is not indicated, is contraindicated. So the linden flower is good to take as a tea. You can mix together linden flower with anise and it's going to help you sleeping, also digesting your food. The linden also is good for people who suffer from cold. From the person who is coughing can drink a linden tea also. So we have different herbs, and I'm mentioning some of them. And with the ones I'm mentioning, you can mix together 2 or 3 of those herbs, and that's going to help. I want to mention also what to avoid. We need to avoid different chemicals. Those chemicals are going to help you to sleep, and they are chemically prepared, and instead of helping you to sleep, is going to break the natural pattern of going to sleep. And so it's better to take the natural herbs and feel without side effect after drinking that. And the chemicals we need to avoid is the nicotine, caffeine, alcohol, and other entertaining drugs. So also we are going to avoid the eating late. We need to eat at least 2 hours before sleeping. Stay active is good to help your body to sleep well. So exercising is recommended to do earlier, not too close with the sleeping time. So because exercising gives you energy, and you breathe and receive more energy. So when you want to go to sleep as you used to sleep at 10 p.m. or 9 p.m., you will feel like you cannot sleep. So it's better to exercise earlier. Also, recommend a hot shower or warm shower, and rinse quickly with cold water. Dry yourself and go to your bed. But also I want to recommend that when you go to your bed, go when you are tired, not go to your bed when you don't really need to sleep. The other one is not keeping television in your bedroom, because the program of the television become too interesting and maybe it's going to disturb your sleeping time. Lowering the volume of your cell phone also is good recommending, and keeping your cell phone at least 6 to 8 feet far away from you, because we know about the frequency, the radio frequency energy on the cell phones can disturb your nervous system and disturb your sleeping pattern. So it's not good to have a cell phone too close to you, especially when it's connected. So those are the recommendations to take care of yourself, and I wish you a good night and good sleep. Goodbye.
Sleeping well is a very important factor if we want to be productive at work and if we want to have an overall good health.
Let's take these tips into practice and therefore sleep well every night.
We hope you can join us in the next video with another health message on treatments for juvenile acne. We hope to see you there.